Captain Lee Hanna stared out the viewing window of the Starbound as the ship moved slowly toward the gray moon ahead. 3 months into their exploration mission, this was their 5th stop in uncharted space. The previous worlds had been empty, rocks or gas giants, with nothing worth noting in their reports back to Earth Command. "Captain," called Park Jin-ho from his navigation station, his voice carrying a note of confusion. "I'm getting some very odd readings here." Hannah turned from the window and walked over to look at his screen. Green and blue lights blinked across the display in patterns she had never seen before. "What kind of readings?" "Life signs, but not like anything in our databases. The computer says they're silicon-based, not carbon like us. And Captain... Jin-ho paused, adjusting his controls. "They're moving really, really slowly, like barely moving at all." Hannah felt her heart beat a little faster. First contact with alien life was every explorer's dream, but it was also dangerous. Earth had theories about what aliens might be like, but no one really knew what to expect. "Kim Min-ho," she called to her communications officer. "Are you picking up anything on the radio frequencies?" Kim Min-ho put his hand to his earpiece and closed his eyes, concentrating. After a moment, his eyes snapped open with surprise. "Captain, you need to hear this. It's not radio exactly, but there's something. It sounds almost like ... He struggled for the right word. "Like singing. Very slow, very deep singing." The moon's surface came into clearer view as they approached. What Hannah had first thought were natural rock formations now looked different. The crystalline structures rose from the ground in beautiful, complex shapes that seemed too organized to be natural. Some were tall and pointed like church spires, others were round and smooth like giant pearls. All of them seemed to glow with a soft inner light. "Those aren't rocks," said Hannah quietly. "Those are buildings, or homes, or something." The Starbound landed on a flat area near the largest cluster of crystal structures. Hannah put together a small away team herself. Jin-ho, Kim Min-ho, and 2 security officers. They put on their environmental suits and stepped out onto the moon's surface. The first thing Hannah noticed was the sound. Even through her helmet, she could hear a low musical humming coming from all around them. It was peaceful, like being inside a giant wind chime on a gentle day. "Captain," whispered one of the security officers, "movement at 2 o'clock." Hannah turned to see something emerging from between the crystal structures. At first, she thought, it might be some kind of walking sculpture. The being was tall, maybe 8 feet, and its body seemed to be made of living crystal. It was translucent, like colored glass, and she could see light moving through it in slow patterns. As it walked, its body made soft chiming sounds, like someone gently striking a bell. Behind the first being came others. Some were taller, some shorter, some had different colors flowing through their crystal bodies. They all moved with the same deliberate, graceful slowness, as if they had all the time in the world. The largest of the beings approached the human team. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind blowing through a cave full of crystals, beautiful but strange. "Greetings, visitors, from, far, stars," it said in broken galactic standard, the trade language most spacefaring species used. Each word came slowly, with long pauses between them. "I am ... called ... resonance of ain suv stars. I ... speak ... for ... people." Hannah removed her helmet, trusting her suit's readings that the air was safe. "I'm Captain Hannah. We're from Earth. We're explorers." The being that called itself. Resonance of ancient stars seemed to consider this for a very long time. Finally, it continued speaking in its slow, musical way. "We ... know ... of ... Earth, small ... blue ... world, quick, people, the ... confederation ... has ... spoken ... of humans, new ... galaxy." "The confederation?" Hannah asked. She had heard rumors of a galactic government, but Earth hadn't made contact yet. Yes, they, came, here, long, ago, took, our, world, took, our, mountains, left, we, 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 were, slow, to, useful. As resonance of ancient stars spoke, more of the crystal beings gathered around, creating a circle of softly chiming music. Hannah could see sadness in their glowing forms, even though their faces were hard to read. They, call, us, Keith, we, call, ourselves, children of the growing stone. We, make, homes, from, ourselves. We, sing, deep, songs. We, remember, old, ways. Kim Minho stepped forward. Your people, how long have you been here? Time, moves, differently, for, us. In, your, counting, perhaps, 200. Of, your, years. We, wait. We, grow. We, hope, someday, someone will, understand. Hannah felt something deep in her chest, a mixture of anger at the Confederation and sympathy for these gentle beings. She had spent her whole life exploring space, looking for wonders and new friends among the stars. Here was an entire people who had been thrown away like garbage, left on a dead moon to survive alone. Well, she said firmly, looking directly at Resonance of Ancient Stars, you won't have to wait alone anymore. Dr. Choi Min-soo sat cross-legged on the crystal floor of what the Cathara called a learning chamber. For 3 weeks now, he had been trying to understand their language, and it was unlike anything he had ever encountered. His notebook was filled with strange symbols and musical notes as he tried to capture the essence of their communication. The problem, he explained to Captain Hannah during their daily briefing, is that we think of conversation as back and forth, quick exchanges, but the Cathara don't work that way at all. He played a recording of his morning session with Elder Resonance of Ancient Stars. What came through the speakers was a long, flowing melody that rose and fell like ocean waves. It was beautiful, but, to human ears, it seemed to go on forever. This single phrase took 4 hours to complete, Min-soo said, but it wasn't just words. It was history, emotion, scientific data, and poetry all woven together. When they speak, they're not just telling you something, they're sharing everything they know about it. Engineer Yang Soo-min looked up from her technical reports. That matches what I'm seeing with their technology. Nothing they make is simple or single purpose. Soo-min had spent her time studying the Cathara's living structures, and what she found amazed her. She led the human team through one of their dwellings, her scanner beeping constantly as it detected new functions. Watch this, she said, placing her hand on what looked like a simple crystal wall. The wall began to glow, and the air around them became fresher and cooler. The wall isn't just a barrier. It's cleaning the air, controlling temperature, and generating power all at the same time. She moved to another section where water seemed to flow upward through crystalline tubes. This isn't plumbing as we know it. The building itself is alive. It grows these channels to bring water where it's needed, filters it, cleans it, and even adds minerals that the Cathara need for their health. Lieutenant Commander Oh Jae-won joined them, looking excited but tired. He had been working with a younger Cathara who seemed more willing to try communicating at human speeds. I've made real contact, he announced. There's a young one who calls. Itself Song of Growing Things. It's been trying to learn our quick speech, and I've been trying to learn its slow speech. He showed them his notes, which were covered with musical symbols and time markers. Here's what I've learned that will change everything we thought we knew. The Cathera aren't slow because they're stupid or primitive. They're slow because they see so much more than we do. Jaewon pulled out a photograph of a nearby asteroid field that the Starbound had passed on the way to the moon. I showed Song of Growing Things this picture. In 30 seconds, I saw rocks floating in space. But Song of Growing Things spent 6 hours telling me everything it saw. He began reading from his notes. It saw which asteroids were made of what minerals, how old they were, where they came from originally, how the gravitational forces were slowly changing their orbits, and how, in about 50,000 years, they would form a small planet. Captain Hannah stared at the photograph with new eyes. They can see all that just by looking. Not just see it, they understand it on a level we can't imagine. Song of Growing Things explained that Cathara don't just look at things as they are. Now, they see the deep patterns, the long changes, the connections between everything. Dr. Minsu nodded enthusiastically. That's why their language takes so long. They're not just telling you what they see, they're sharing the entire web of connections and relationships. Every word carries layers of meaning that go back thousands of years. Yang Sumin was examining her scanner readings again, and that's why their technology is so complex. They don't make tools that do one job. They grow systems that work together in ways that will be useful for centuries. She pointed to a section of the wall that was slowly changing color. This building has been growing for over 100 years. Parts of it are still developing new functions. The Cathera who started it probably planned for needs that won't arise for another century. Oh, Jaewon smiled. Song of Growing Things told me something beautiful today. It said that humans are like bright flames. We burn fast and hot and change everything around us quickly. But Cathera are like deep rivers. They move slowly, but they carve canyons and shape the world over a long time. Captain Hannah felt a growing excitement. What else have you learned from Song of Growing Things? The Confederation made a huge mistake, Jaewon said seriously. They saw the Cathera moving slowly and assumed they were dumb animals. But the Cathera understand things about space, about planets, about the deep structure of the universe that other species don't even know exist. He showed them more notes, filled with complex diagrams. Song of Growing Things has been teaching me about something. It calls the deep currents, flows of energy and matter that move through space over millions of years. The Cathara can see these patterns and predict how solar systems will change. Dr. Minsu was nodding vigorously. No wonder the galaxy threw them away. They were asking the wrong questions and listening for the wrong answers. The Cathara aren't behind us or ahead of us. They're operating on a completely different level. Yang Sumin looked around at the living buildings surrounding them. Imagine what we could learn from them. Imagine what we could build together. Captain Hannah felt that same stirring in her chest she had experienced when first meeting the Cathera. Then let's find out. Director Yoon Hae-jin stood on the balcony of New Haven's central tower, watching the morning activities in the settlement. Below, the sight still amazed her after a full year of living here. Human children ran between the crystal gardens, their excited shouts mixing with the gentle chiming sounds of young Cathara at play. She watched as 8-year-old Tommy Chen carefully placed his hand on the side of a small Cathera named Whisperwound. The crystal being's body glowed softly blue, and suddenly a small flower made of living crystal grew from its shoulder. Tommy laughed with delight and showed it to his friends, both human and Cathera. Director Hae-jin called her assistant from behind her. We have visitors. A Confederation ship just entered our space. Hae-jin sighed. She had been expecting this visit, but she had hoped for more time. The colony was still new, still proving itself. But word had spread through the galaxy about what humans and Cathera were building together. An hour later, she stood in the colony's main meeting hall, facing a group of aliens she had only seen in pictures before. The Zephorians looked like giant hawks that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Their feathers were dark gray and black, and their yellow eyes held no warmth. Leading them was Captain Nam Ji-wan, a human who worked for the Confederation, and behind him stood Commander Zektar, whose beak was curved in what looked like permanent disapproval. Director Hyjin, Captain Nam said formally, "I present Commander Zektar of the Confederation Oversight Division. He's here to evaluate your ... experiment." Commander Zektar stepped forward, his claws clicking on the crystal floor. When he spoke, his voice was sharp and harsh like metal scraping against stone. "What you are doing here is wrong," he announced without any greeting. "The Confederation has rules for good reasons. Humans are Category 3 beings. You have basic intelligence and some useful skills. The Cathara are Category 5 beings. They are barely above animals. This mixing is not natural." Hyjin felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "We don't use your category system here, Commander. We work together based on what each person can contribute, not on what some chart says they should be able to do." "Imposible. Imposible," Zektar screeched. "The categories are based on scientific measurement. Brain capacity, reaction speed, technological development. The Cathara failed every test." "Then your tests were wrong," Hyjin said simply. Before Zektar could respond, the doors to the meeting hall opened, and technical specialist Bei Sunho entered with two companions, a human engineer and a tall Cathara, whose crystal body sparkled with green and gold patterns. Director Sunho said, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just finished the ocean cleaning test on the third moon. The results are incredible." Hyjin smiled. "Perfect timing. Commander Zektar, would you like to see what Category 3 and Category 5 beings can accomplish when they work together?" The group moved to Sunho's laboratory, where holographic displays showed images of an ocean world covered in pollution. The water was dark brown and thick with industrial waste. "This moon was poisoned by mining operations 50 years ago," Sunho explained. "The Confederation said it would take 300 years to clean naturally. Other species have tried to speed up the process, but the best estimates were still over a century of work." He activated another display showing the same ocean, but now the water was clear blue. Fish swam in schools near the surface, and plants waved gently on the ocean floor. "We cleaned it in 6 months, Sunho said proudly. Commander Zektar's feathers ruffled with surprise. "Impossible. What technology did you use?" The Cathara beside Sunho spoke in its musical voice. "I am growth of deep waters. My people provided the living filters. We grew them from our own bodies, creating organisms that could eat the poison and turn it into food for other sea life." Sunho nodded. "But the Cathara filters would have taken 50 years to spread through the entire ocean at their natural pace. So we combined their biological systems with human engineering. We built fast deployment, ships that could carry the filters to every part of the ocean in months instead of decades." He showed them video of small ships racing across the ocean surface, leaving trails of glowing blue behind them. "The ships are alive, grown by the Cathara, but piloted by humans. They can repair themselves, adapt to different water conditions, and work around the clock without stopping." Captain Nam looked impressed despite himself. The results speak for themselves. But Commander Zektar was not convinced. "This proves nothing. One success does not change the natural order. Humans should work with humans. Cathara should work with their own kind. Mixing different categories leads to chaos." "No," said Growth of Deep, in its slow, musical way. "Mixing leads to new possibilities. Humans see the quick needs. We see the long patterns. Together, we see everything." Hyjin gestured toward the windows of the laboratory, where the colonies spread out below them. Humans and Cathara worked side by side in gardens that sparkled with crystal plants. Living buildings grew taller as they watched, shaped by Cathara biology and human engineering working together. "Look around you, Commander," she said. "We're not just surviving here. We're thriving. We're solving problems that have puzzled the galaxy for thousands of years. And we're doing it by ignoring your categories and focusing on what works. Commander Zektar stared out at the colony for a long moment. Finally, he turned back to the group, his yellow eyes cold. The Confederation will not allow this to continue, he said. You are disrupting the natural order. There will be consequences. As the Safarians prepared to leave, Hai-Jin watched their ship disappear into space. She wasn't afraid of their threats, but she knew that bigger challenges were coming. Admiral Im Dongvu stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, feeling the ship's living hull pulse gently beneath his feet, through the transparent crystal walls. He could see the Confederation fleet approaching hundreds of gray metal warships, arranged in perfect formation like a swarm of angry insects. Admiral called Combat Coordinator Jo Ariam from her station, which glowed with soft blue light as it connected directly to her thoughts. I count 312 enemy ships. They're moving into attack formation. Dongwu nodded calmly. He had been expecting this day ever since Commander Zektar's visit to New Haven 6 months ago. The Confederation had made their choice, and now humanity and their Cathara friends would face the consequences. How many ships do we have? He asked. 47 living ships, plus the defense platforms around New Haven, Jo Ariam reported. We're badly outnumbered. Admiral Dongwu smiled grimly. Numbers aren't everything. Signal all ships, prepare for combat. The Harmony's edge had been grown rather than built. Cathara bioarchitects had spent months cultivating its crystalline hull from their own bodies, while human engineers had designed the weapons and control systems. The result was a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, part technology, part living creature. As the Confederation fleet opened fire, the battle began in earnest. The first barrage of energy weapons struck the Harmony's edge, but instead of exploding, the ship's hull simply absorbed the damage. Cracks appeared in the crystal surface, but they immediately began healing themselves, the living material, flowing like water to repair the wounds. Return fire, Dongwu ordered. The ship's weapons were grown from the same living crystal as its hull. They fired beams of pure energy that could change direction mid-flight, following enemy ships as they tried to dodge. But more impressive than the weapons was how the ship itself fought. Pilot Kang Taeon sat in his fighter, feeling the neural interface connect his mind directly to the small ship's consciousness. The Cathara had grown special nerve-like fibers that responded to human thoughts, making the ship feel like an extension of his own body. This is incredible, he radioed to his squadron leader. The ship knows what I want to do before I do it. His fighter danced between enemy fire, moving in ways that defied physics. When a Confederation missile locked onto him, the ship's hull suddenly sprouted new armor plates to deflect the explosion. When he needed to make a sharp turn, wings grew from the sides of his fighter to catch the solar wind. But the real surprise came when other ships began appearing on the battlefield, ships that weren't human or Cathara. Admiral, Jo Ariam called excitedly. We're getting communications from unknown vessels. They're asking permission to join the fight. On the main screen, Dongwu saw something beautiful. The Nerians had arrived, aquatic beings who had been classified as too primitive by the Confederation because they lived underwater. Their ships looked like giant sea creatures, flowing and graceful as they moved through space. Behind them came the Vortani, gaseous beings, who lived in the clouds of gas giant planets. The Confederation had dismissed them as too insubstantial to be useful, but their storm ships crackled with lightning and could pass through solid matter like ghosts. This is Captain Flowing Current of the Nerian Deep Fleet, came a liquid voice over the communications system. Humanity showed us that the categories mean nothing. We stand with you. More voices joined in. The rock-like granite people, dismissed as too slow by the Confederation. The tiny spark folk, considered too small to matter. The plant-like bloomers, thought too passive for galactic society. Species after species that had been thrown away by the Confederation's rigid thinking now came to fight alongside humanity and the Cathara on New Haven's surface. Sergeant Major Shin Young-jung led a mixed unit of human soldiers and Cathara warriors as Confederation troops attempted to land. She watched in amazement as her Cathara companions transformed for battle. Growth of Sherpeges, a Cathara she had worked with for months, suddenly began changing. Its crystal body grew thicker and harder, forming natural armor that could stop bullets. Sharp spikes emerged from its arms, creating weapons that were part of its own body. "How do you coordinate with them?" asked one of her human soldiers, ducking behind cover as enemy fire swept over their position. "Same way we coordinate with each other," Yeonjung replied, speaking into her radio. "Growth of sharp pages. Can you create a barrier to block their advance?" The Cathara warrior sang a brief crystal song, and suddenly a wall of living stone erupted from the ground, cutting off the enemy soldiers' advance. Other Cathara began growing bridges and tunnels, allowing the human troops to move safely around the battlefield. It's not just about fighting, Yoonjung realized as she watched her mixed unit work together seamlessly. It's about what we're fighting for. In space, the battle was turning in their favor. The Confederation's rigid metal ships couldn't adapt to enemies that changed tactics mid-fight. Their standardized weapons were useless against hulls that could absorb damage and repair themselves. Admiral Dong-woo watched as a Confederation battleship tried to ram the Harmony's edge. At the moment of impact, his ship's hull became soft and flexible, absorbing the collision like a cushion before hardening again and trapping the enemy vessel. "This is Admiral Zektar," came an angry screech over the communications system. "You cannot win. We have the entire Confederation behind us." "No," Dong-woo replied calmly. "You have the Confederation's leaders behind you, but you threw away half the galaxy's species. Now they're all behind us." As if to prove his point, more alien ships appeared on the sensors. The forgotten species of the galaxy had heard about the battle and come to join the fight for freedom from the categories that held them back. Shin Young-jung watched the enemy troops retreating to their landing ships, defeated by the combined efforts of humans and Cathara, working as one. "We're not just fighting for the Cathara," she said to her soldiers as they regrouped. "We're fighting for everyone the galaxy gave up on." Ambassador Park Seo-yoon walked through the Great Assembly Hall, listening to the voices of 47 different species, discussing plans for a new trade route. The sound was like a symphony, the deep crystal songs of the Cathara mixing with the liquid voices of the Nerians, the whistling winds of the Vortani, and the steady rumbles of the Granite people. 5 years ago, this would have been impossible. The old Confederation had believed that only the superior species deserved to speak in galactic government. Now, every species had a voice, no matter how they had been classified before. "The motion to establish the new route passes," announced Speaker Flowing Harmony, a Cathara whose crystal body had grown special acoustic chambers that let it translate between different languages in real time. "All species will benefit from increased trade and cultural exchange." Seo-yoon smiled as she watched a group of tiny Sparkfolk representatives zoom around the head of a massive granite delegate. Their electric bodies leaving trails of light as they discussed mining rights. The granite person's stone face showed what might have been amusement as it tried to follow their rapid movements. In the old days, the Confederation would have said the Sparkfolk were too small and the granite people too slow to work together. Now they were planning joint operations that would benefit both their worlds. Ambassador Park called a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Master Cultivator Song of Deep Roots approaching. The ancient Cathara moved with the same deliberate grace as always, but now its crystal body bore new patterns of gold and silver that showed its status as one of the galaxy's most respected teachers. "Master Song," Seo-yoon bowed respectfully. "How go the new growth worlds?" "Better than we dared hope," the Cathara sang in its musical voice. "Young beings from 30 species have come to learn the deep patience They study how to see beyond the moment, how to think in centuries rather than heartbeats. Seo Yoon had visited one of the growth worlds last month. It was beautiful beyond description, an entire planet where living cities grew from crystal seeds, taking decades to mature but lasting for thousands of years. Students from across the galaxy came there to learn wisdom that could only be gained by slowing down and thinking deeply. And the humans adapt to this teaching? She asked. Song, dash of dash deep, made a sound like gentle wind chimes, which Seo Yoon had learned was Kithara laughter. Some do, others teach us their quick thinking in return. We learn from each other, as it should be. Their conversation was interrupted by an excited young voice. Ambassador Park. Master Song, you have to come see this. A human boy ran up to them, his face bright with joy. Behind him walked a young Kithara, its crystal body shimmering with rainbow colors. Seo Yoon recognized him. Jin Woojin, a human orphan from the war, and his adopted sibling Crystal Song of Joy. What is it, Woojin? Seo Yoon asked. We're going home, to Terra Verde, for the big ceremony. The boy bounced with excitement, while his Kithara sibling chimed musical notes of happiness. Seo Yoon single quotes as heart warmed. She knew about the ceremony. It would be the first official adoption ceremony between humans and Kithara, recognizing what had already been happening informally for years. 2 hours later, Seo Yoon found herself on Terra Verde, one of the most beautiful worlds in the new Constellation Alliance. The planet was covered with cities that were part grown, part built, human engineering combined with Kithara bioarchitecture to create homes that were both practical and alive. She stood in the central plaza of New Dawn City, watching as hundreds of beings gathered for the ceremony. Humans and Kithara filled most of the space, but she also saw Nerians in portable water tanks, gaseous Vortani contained in clear domes, and many other species who had come to witness this historic moment. At the center of the plaza, 2 families waited. Residents of New Beginnings, an elderly Kithara, held the hand of 8-year-old Min Jae Kim, a human boy whose parents had died in the war. Nearby, human couple Lim Soo Yoon and Han Boyang stood with Harmony of Small Wonders, a young Kith whose own family had been lost years ago. Captain Lee Hanna, now retired from space exploration but working as a cultural liaison, stepped forward to officiate the ceremony. Seo Yoon could see tears in the older woman's eyes as she spoke. Today we witness something new in galactic history, Hannah said, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal acoustics of the plaza. Not just adoption between species, but the recognition that family is about choice, not biology. She turned. 2 residents of New Beginnings, do you choose this human child as your own, to guide and protect according to both human and Kithara traditions? The ancient Kithara song filled the air with pure joy. I choose him. He will learn the deep songs and the quick laughter. He will be child of 2 worlds, citizen of all worlds. Hannah turned to the human couple. Do you choose this Kithara child as your own, to guide and protect according to both human and Kithara traditions? We choose her, Lim Soo Yoon said firmly. She will learn human speed and Kithara wisdom. She will be our daughter in all ways that matter. As the ceremony concluded, the living city around them began to glow. The crystal spires that grew throughout New Dawn City resonated with the happiness of its inhabitants, their surfaces shifting from blue to gold to warm orange as the sun set. Seo Yoon watched as little Min Jae hugged his new Kithara parent, while Harmony of Small Wonders sang a crystal lullaby to her new human family. Around them, beings from dozens of species celebrated together. Captain Hannah wiped tears from her eyes as she joined Seo Yoon. You know what the most amazing thing is, she said softly. What's that? 5 years ago, the Confederation told us the Kithara were worthless. Today, species from across the galaxy come to learn from them. It turns out that when you stop trying to rank everyone and start trying to understand them, you discover that everyone has something precious to offer. Seo Yoon nodded. watching as the mixed families walked home together through streets lined with both human technology and living crystal gardens. The galaxy had learned something important from humanity, that strength didn't come from standing above others, but from lifting everyone up together. The Cathara had finally found their place among the stars, not as outcasts, but as beloved family in the vast constellation of galactic civilization.